Hey folks, welcome back to another week of Cape, and today we're going to start things off with Rockport School Superintendent Rob Liebow, who is going to give us the latest on the situation there. Are kids going back? Are they staying home? What are they going to do about sports? I have no idea, Heather.
Yeah, and it's our first interview with somebody on a boat.
Yeah. Enjoy it. Looks for the masts flying by in the background. It's pretty cool.
And the seagulls. Do you want to just start talking about the decision that was made in Rockport, describing the decision, Rob?
Well, it's not a final decision yet. So it's in a 3 or 4 step process in which the opening of school committee presented their plan to the school committee, and then they had a parent forum on Wednesday night. That's the meeting that went till about 11. And then last night they had a school committee meeting to continue to sort of process on their own their thoughts, as well as the information they had received from parents, either at the forum or through email. And then they have a meeting scheduled for Monday night at 7:15, at which time they plan to vote. And then if the vote is positive for the proposed plan, it would be submitted to the Department of Education late Monday night, because we got an extension to the 17th to do that.
So what are these conversations looking like in Rockport?
I mean, they're sort of all over the board. I'd say it's about a 50-50 split between folks that feel that the remote is the way to go. In the beginning, we're not talking about, going fully remote and staying that way. We're talking about a phased in approach, kind of like the governor did, to do a short phase in with a reevaluation of metrics, which are still to be determined, because the metrics that the governor put out, if you've seen those little color codes, that those are per 100,000 residents. Well, Rockport has 7,000 residents. So if you talk about being in red, which means you need to be in remote, according to that, that is 8 or more cases per 100,000. What does that mean when it's 7,300, people in town? And on the Board of Health meeting last night, they reported there was another reported active case in Rockport. So if you do the math, does that mean that one, because your population is 1/10 the size, inflates itself to be 10 and therefore become red? Nobody seems to have that answer to us. So those metrics are really not something that we can just sort of plug in, because they don't relate to a community of our size, especially a community that has such a large influx of tourists as well as summer residents, as opposed to, a town sort of isolated with the normal come and go is about what it always is. We have a different volume of people that come through who nobody knows anything about. So the metrics is a real problem that we have to solve before we can say that we're ready to open up. We want to be cautious. We want to be prudent. We don't want to make a mistake. We want to do this right. Our kids are our most precious resource in Rockport. I believe that in my soul, and we can't put them in a position that either they get sick or they affect the adults in the building, because the adults, can get affected by an asymptomatic carrier. We have 25 teacher association members that don't live in Rockport. So they would be coming and commuting from other places around the state who could be in different color zones. That's a real challenge for us. One of the other big challenges is we have not got our ventilation system in old buildings yet certified that it's making the right number of air exchanges that would be necessary for folks to feel comfortable coming back in the building. It's one of the things that, rightly so, the Teachers Association and the support staff want to know, what is the condition of the ventilation system? So for years, it's a heating ventilation thing. It's hobbled along. And then when you get in the pandemic, then it's like, well, it has to make this number of air exchanges. You're not talking about a new system. I think I saw somewhere, I'm not sure whose district it was, the report on their ventilation system. It might have been Masco or one of those towns, because it went through all the elementary, no, it was Hamilton Wenham. And they went through all their schools over there, and they're old schools too.
Mm.
It's an old high school, middle school complex, a bunch of old elementaries. And they had room by room, fan broken, belt doesn't work, thermostat inoperable on wall. So those are things you sort of tolerate, you know, in a regular thing that's going on with school. It's a little hot, it's a little cold, but it's not something you can tolerate, you know, when you have to maintain the proper air exchanges for a pandemic. So next week, we have the experts that certified and did Leahy Hospital were relayed to us, and they will go through our system and they'll determine, okay, does this work? Does this not work? Are the air exchanges proper? Here's what you need to repair. And then we need to figure out where we're at with regard to that. But we do have a little time, because remember, school does not start, you know, traditionally like it normally does on the first week of September, just before Labor Day this year. They moved it back at least 10 days because of professional development. So the school year for students wasn't scheduled to start till Wednesday, September 16th anyway. And then our first checkpoint, we built 2 checkpoints into the phased in approach. The first is October 14th. In other words, coming out of Columbus Day weekend. If we feel the ventilation system is, you know, where it should be, and I think our community wants to know that answer. If I was a parent, I'd want to know that answer. I think as a superintendent, I want to know that answer. You know, and not only for my responsibility, but for my own health. You know, I'm in an office there all the time, and I'd like to know that the air exchanges are in the right particular situation. That's only 3 weeks from the opening theoretical school day. So what sounds like a long period of time, when you look at a calendar, it would be 3 weeks of remote. And then if everything's good, the metrics are figured out, then we would move to a hybrid. And the hybrid is 2 cohorts of kids. They come on alternating days. There's a remote day Monday, and then there's a group that comes on Tuesday, Thursday, and one that comes on Wednesday, Friday. And that reduces the number of kids in the building, the number of potential interactions between kids. Because one of the things the commissioner started off doing in the early part of the summer was saying, okay, we've studied all these other countries. They're opening schools. And we found out that 3 feet is a safe distance with a mask on. We just shook our heads and said, I don't think so. And many schools systems in the state have said, I don't think so. Just because you state that in, you know, Korea or someplace like that, with the regimentation that goes on, you know, probably if you're told to wear a mask in Korea, you wear it. I'm not sure that's going to be a universal adherence in situations that are a little different in our country. You just walk around town and look at mask adherence. I think it's pretty good, but you're talking about high school kids. You're talking about middle school kids. We're going to be transitioning in a hallway, in hot hallways. We have to make sure that that is right. So we did not buy the 3 foot of distance. We said, we're going to follow the CDC guidelines, and we're going to say 6 feet of distance. So when you apply that to your classrooms, you can't bring all the kids back. You can't fit them physically into the building. So that became, it had to be a hybrid as opposed to an all student, you know, return situation. I don't know how Gloucester, you know, figured that out. They would have had to do the pressure testing. I don't know if they stuck with 3 or whatever, but our Board of Health, our school committee, our administration, and I think our parents felt that 3 feet is not acceptable, because 3 feet becomes 2 feet, becomes 1 foot. You're my friend. I'm in the hall, my mask's down. You know, I was a high school principal and an assistant principal. The transition between classes is an interesting time. You know, take yourself back to high school. You're at your locker, you see your friends, you see your enemies. It's not a controlled environment with, you know, people just going about their business. You know, it's your break. And if you put 800 kids in a hallway, no matter where that is, that's a potential for an interesting little environment. And then last week, Governor Baker had come out and said, you know, he listed all these places. There was a party in Swampscott. There was this and that, a prom party in Weymouth or whatever. And we got to slow this down a little bit. And I'm going to go to no gatherings of more than 25. down from whatever it was, 50. Well, what's a hallway? Is that a gathering of 25? You know, I'm not sure they've thought that through well for schools, and a lot of them haven't been in schools, you know, and they don't remember exactly what it's like. But we need to get this right, in my opinion, and we're still in the process of doing that. The final vote will come in. We're worried about you know, trying to be able to meet the needs of, you know, folks that need childcare and all that kind of stuff. And just last night we did approve a program with the Y that would take on kids that had to have a situation for their family work obligations. So that's going to take a little heat off. We are bringing back our high needs kids into the building. So special ed kids that are, you know, really in need of face-to-face, kids that really, really struggled in the spring. We're going to try to bring that group into the building. Now, we have to negotiate that. That's a sensitive topic, but I think we've got a partnership with our unions that will allow that to happen. But a whole-scale return is just off the plate. And what we're hoping for is a phased-in approach so that in October, we hybrid, and it's the right thing to do. And then maybe, if there's a vaccine at some point, then we can get to a full return at some point. But without that, you're always going to be in a hybrid because of the 6-foot distance. So that's where we're at.
So I'd like to ask, first of all, will in the first phase of working remotely, will the teachers be in their classrooms in the school?
That is still up in the air a little bit. I think at least they're going to be able to be in their classrooms. Whether it will be mandated they all come to their classrooms, and then certain people having the right to say, well, my doctor's note says no, not in this enclosed space. We haven't quite gotten there yet. We have some negotiations to do, and we have until the 16th of September before you're really dealing with kids. Ideally, I think it's good to be in your workspace. Now, it's depending on which side of the coin you're on, that's either a yay or a nay, and we'll work that out, but it's a topic for negotiation.
And do you have a high percent? I'm sorry.
No, I think some places would think you could just mandate that. But we try to work with our staff to try to say, you know, what are the reasons why you don't want to do that? Or, you know, what's the pushback on that? And if there's legitimate reasons, we want to work with that. You know, we don't want to just go out and say, that's the way it is, you come back in the building. I think it'll happen. I think most of the people will come back into the building. I think there'll be some people, rightly so, that need to be able to teach remotely. And there would have been the same group that would have taught remotely if we'd gone in a hybrid. Because there are some teachers that, because of their medical conditions, cannot return to the building with kids in the building. That doesn't mean they won't teach, but they'll teach remotely, and they'll teach our kids that need remote. There are a whole bunch of kids whose parents will not let them return to the building. We have to teach them. It's our obligation to teach them. So our remote teachers may be the ones that have legitimate reasons not to be there, who are working with the groups of kids that have legitimate reasons not to be there. So it's going to be kind of a mix. It's going to be really interesting, but we don't want to just drive it forward and then realize a week in that we made a mistake and that a kid tests positive, and then all the kids in the class are then quarantined, and anyone who was in the hallway the last 10 minutes are then in the same boat, because that just makes a real horror show out of it and reduces trust and confidence. And people then would be even more wary to come back into the building. So we don't want to get into that. We want to get it right if we possibly can. And everybody has their own school system and their own situation. We have a community in Rockport with a lot of older folks. And, you know, our obligation is to school, but our obligation also is to the community. They support us. Our kids are on Bearskin Neck. Those folks want to go on Bearskin Neck. It's a little different situation than it may be in Malden or whatever, you know, where there may not be a lot of tourism in Malden, right?
So can you review what does happen specifically once you're in the hybrid situation, and if there's a suspected case of COVID in the school? And what about substitute teachers?
Well, substitute teachers may still exist, but they probably would be, already, part of our, we have some permanent subs for each building. There are 3 folks that are full-time employees who are our permanent subs. Now, we might need more than that, but theoretically, there's sometimes you might be able to stay home a little sick, maybe not with COVID or whatever, but still be able to teach remotely and not have to then access a substitute like you would if you had to drive all the way to work and then be around people with whatever you could have spread to them. So I think the use of substitutes is probably going to drop off a little bit. But what was the first part of your question?
I'm sorry, that was 2 questions. So what exactly will happen? What would the protocol be if there's a suspected case of COVID?
I could send you that, but there's an 18-page guideline, and you can find that on the DESE website that gives you all the protocols for student test positive, student is around another student, faculty member, but it's a long document, and it depends on the circumstances. And then they talk about testing and then no symptoms for X number of days before they can return. It's a very complex process. And I think right now, unfortunately, the public health nurses would tell you that that document is in conflict with their practice. The one that came from DESE is not the same lengths of time and the same standards. And they would say, we're working to resolve that with DESE. I mean, DESE had its own medical team. But the members from the Board of Health would say, no, we have different time lengths. We're treating people in our community different than that. So what do we use? Do we use the DESE guidelines, or you use the Rockport Board of Health guidelines?
And that's the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, right? The state.
Right. They put out, first of all, an opening guideline. Then they put out one on transportation, how you do your buses, which is 1 kid per seat, every other seat. A 70-passenger bus becomes a 25-passenger bus at best. Then they gave you one on the PPEs. Then they give you one on the protocols for opening and closing in terms of the cases that you have or people in contact and all that kind of stuff. But it's a very long document. You have to sort of follow the flow chart. If this happens, go here. If that happens, go there. And it would be hard to describe it. And even if I did, I'm not sure it's the right one to follow because it's in conflict with the one that the Board of Health would say that you should follow. So those are still to be determined. And I would say every other community would have the same problem. Gloucester would have the same problem. I think, and if they've discovered it yet, they'll find it out that it's not the same.
Rob, have there been any decisions made regarding extracurricular activities or the sports program?
Not yet. There was a little document that came out last night, and I can't remember who the tag at the top was. It was some Massachusetts agency that has the power to talk about youth sports. And then it says, including K-12 public education activities. But it was sent to us by the Superintendent's Association. But we've been told, oh no. DESE is going to come out with whether there's going to be sports or not. Or the Massachusetts Interscholastic Athletic Association will do that, the MIAA. And I think they're sort of battling who really has the power. I think the Supreme Court is the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. But this other organization seems like they have a lot of power, and they sent out this red and green kind of thing for certain sports are red, like football. Pretty hard to do football in terms of the nature of what you do to be socially distanced at 6 feet while you tackle somebody. You know what I mean? And you've run them down the field. Now, could you do soccer where theoretically you're not supposed to run into anybody? But I've seen a lot of battles for the ball at midfield where kids fall down, and they didn't just fall down on their own. They were pushed down, helped down, knocked down. Is that an interaction that is less than 6 feet of social distance? Where's the mask while the kid runs up and down the field? If you've got the same standard for your school, why isn't the same standard for the field? Plus, you're sending your kids from your school, which might be all following rules, to some other school where maybe it's a little more loosey-goosey. And now you're putting your kids in a really tough situation. Golf, probably okay, right? You got your 6 kids, you tee off, not a lot of pushing and shoving, you know what I mean? You just sort of like run the course. That's probably okay. And on their little guideline, that's a green sport. that they would say, green light, you go ahead and do that, and you can get them on a bus and transport them. How do you put the Danvers football team on a bus and send them to Beverly when you only put 20 kids on the bus? How many buses do you have? 6 buses to go to the football game? There's some really difficult sort of characteristics there. The fans, it's a real tough situation with regard. So there's no answer yet. If every week we have a commissioner's call and he says, sports information is coming next week. Sports information is coming next week. Well, I don't have that in my hand yet from DESE. I have this other organization.
Getting back to the buses, for instance, will there be 6 buses coming to Pigeon Cove to pick up children?
No, what we did as part of our survey, we sent out a survey saying, would you come back if it was full? Would you come back if it was hybrid? How about the bus? How many have to have the bus? How many could do alternate transportation? In other words, they bring their own kids. And there was a large number of people that not only wanted to help out for the team, knowing that we had a reduced capacity, but also probably were of the mindset, I'm not putting my kid on a bus either. I'm going to bring my kid to school, and then you got a pretty regimented environment. So it looked like we would not have had a problem using our 3 buses, maybe 4 buses, because we have 4 buses, adding another route and not having to double run or anything like that, that we could have got all the kids that need transportation. Transportation law is that you only have to transport kids that are more than 2 miles from your school who are in grade kindergarten to 6. Theoretically, you have no obligation to any middle school kids, any high school kids, or anybody within 2 miles. Take a Rockport map, drive a stake into the school and take a 2-mile circle, and you do almost the entire town of Rockport. So technically, you could say, we're only picking up K to 6 kids who live more than 2 miles away. Otherwise, then that's your problem. Now, we wouldn't do that. We'll try to service all the kids we can, but it's not going to take extra buses and extra drivers. We may add 1 more bus, but.
No.
So, Robbie, how concerned are you about this, whatever we deal with this fall and its impact on this year's school budget?
Well, we've had some reasonable help from the federal and state government. There are the CARES funds. We got a amount of money of $225 per student that is able to be used for technology and PPE and stuff like that. So if you do the math, if you've got 800 kids, that should give you around $160,000 or $180,000. Unfortunately, what happened was that they didn't count our choice kids. So they used your resident enrollment. So we only got 140,000, which is real money, but 50,000 went to Gloucester for kids that we educate that's supposed to be used for stuff for them while they're being educated. Now, I haven't called up the superintendent and said, hey, please send me my $50,000. They just didn't think about that. They used the Chapter 70 formula for resident enrollment, and we have 1/3 of our kids come by choice. So to me, I lost 50 grand, but I'm not sure, that Gloucester would readily give that up. They need a lot of that money too, and I can't change the formula. It is what it is. It was poor thinking, I think. It should have been used by the number of kids you educate, no matter where they come from, because it was going to be used for masks for those kids or screens for those kids. If they're going to our building, that money over there helps Gloucester do other things, and it means we can't do some things. So to me, that's really poor thinking on their part, and we express that, but they're in a flurry of, we got to do this, we got to do that. How do we send it out? We use the Chapter 70 formula. There's somebody in the back raising their hand saying, hey, wait a minute, question in the back here. How about a school that they didn't ever ask us, they just told us. But it's still 140,000 we wouldn't have had otherwise. And before that, we got about 80,000. So we're not too worried right now about the funding. If we go remote for a long period of time, that means no substitutes technically. So instead of the regular days when you're paying almost $100 a day for a substitute, you might have 4 or 5 in the district on the time, you know, $600 a day times 5 days, $3,000 a week. You know, pretty soon that starts to add up to money. Probably not using the same paper supplies that we would use before because it's remote. So there are savings around in different lines that we're not too worried about the, you know, the budget going south. They did have town meeting in Rockport a week ago on Saturday in a socially distanced manner on the soccer field, and the school budget passed there and had its normal increase in it. We are worried about something called circuit breaker reimbursement because the state budget hasn't told us what that is yet, and that is the return on the amount of money that you spend on a kid in an out of a district placement. So if you have a kid going to a $300,000 placement, which can happen, and we have situations of that nature, what would happen with that is you would pay the part called foundation, which is about $44,000. The difference, a year later, you get back, supposedly by law, 75% of that. But they haven't said what that's going to be. So if it's small, that's huge money that we would have depended on that's going to be gone. So we don't have much of an answer to that right at this moment. So that's my greatest worry.
Gotcha.
Town budget passed. That was a big hurdle. They also say the federal government's going to come through with additional stimulus money. But I think they just adjourned and went home. And, you know, President Trump did a little bit of executive order, but I didn't see a whole lot of pennies falling from the sky on that.
Well, I think, Rob, you're on this boat in Maine and things are getting very busy there, right? You probably
I'm fine. So, I mean, pretty soon we'll have to slice off, but we can always continue.
Yeah. Well, anything else you want to leave us with?
No, I mean, we just appreciate everything you're doing. You do a wonderful thing for the community and getting information out and, you know, making sure that people are heard and their opinions are set and all that kind of stuff. So we're hopeful to work out for our kids. That's our goal, you know, to do what's best by our kids and our community. And there's different opinions on that. We just hope we want to be able to look in our rearview mirror a year from now and say, oh, maybe we were a little cautious, you know, but we then, you know, picked it up. We don't want to look in our rearview mirror and say, what happened? Why did we do that? Why didn't we make sure of this or that? And that's our responsibility to make sure that the check and balances are there.